All right, it looks like we can go ahead and get started. Hello again, my name is Emily Neckrish, and I work at the Smithsonian Institution Archives, part of the Smithsonian Libraries and Archives, where we collect, preserve, and share the history of the Smithsonian Institution. On behalf of the Libraries and Archives, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's program, Wikipedia and Women in Science, Smithsonian Groundbreakers. Before we get started, I want to gratefully acknowledge the Piscataway tribe on whose ancestral homelands I live, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their homes here. Today's program is offered in collaboration between the Smithsonian Libraries and Archives, the Biodiversity Heritage Library, and the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative, and honors the legacy of Dr. Vicki Funk, who is a senior research botanist and curator at the National Museum of Natural History and an extraordinary mentor to women scientists. Thank you for joining us today and for being part of this important initiative. We know that the stories of the achievements and challenges of women in science will educate and embolden future generations, but only if their legacies are discoverable. And now for a few details about how this will all work. Note that the Q&A box is where we'll be communicating with you throughout the program. We'll answer your questions there, and we'll post links in the chat as they come up in the discussion. We are recording this program so that we can share it with those who weren't able to tune in today, and that recording will live on our YouTube channel at the Smithsonian Institution Archives. Now, I'd like to welcome one of the experts who will be speaking with you today, Dr. Elizabeth Harmon. Liz is the American Women's History Initiative Digital Curator at the Smithsonian Institution Archives, where she researches and produces digital resources and exhibitions about the history of women in science at the Smithsonian. Liz completed her PhD and MA in American Culture at the University of Michigan. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Liz.
Thanks, Emily. Kelly Doyle graciously agreed to share my slides, so I'm going to give her a minute. Thank you, Kelly. All right. So thanks again, Emily. I'm so excited to be with you all here today. I want to tell you more about the Funk List, which has inspired this editathon. And I also want to tell you a bit more about the history of women in science at the Smithsonian. So starting with this picture of Dr. Funk, who Emily mentioned in her remarks too, I wanted to explain that the Funk List is a list of women who have worked in the sciences at the Smithsonian from the institution's founding to the present. So the list is named in honor of Dr. Vicki Funk, who passed away in October 2019. Dr. Funk was a botanist at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History for an incredible 38 years. She was a curator of astrophysics. I hope I said that right. That's daisies for the non-scientists among us. Anyone who knows if I said that wrong, feel free to get in touch with me and tell me. But okay, so moving to this next slide, which unpacks the Funk List a little bit more. A couple years ago, Dr. Funk and a team at the Smithsonian Institution Archives got to work writing down and crowdsourcing names of women in science at the Smithsonian. By the time they were done, they had a solid list of over 100 names. And their work was really born out of a desire to highlight as many women as possible who helped to build inroads into the field of science at the Smithsonian. And they were inspired at the time and supported by the American Women's History Initiative, and really the initiative's work to create, disseminate, and amplify the historical record of the accomplishments of American women. So in 2019, as part of the Women's History Initiative and through Smithsonian Libraries and Archives, I was hired to continue carrying out this work. And the Funk List now contains information about over 500 women in science across the Smithsonian. And as a historian, this list of women in science at the Smithsonian has helped me in two important ways in particular. One, we now have a good idea, for example, of who the first 100, 200, say, women in science are at the Smithsonian. With that list, then, I can do archival research across Smithsonian collections to share more about the lives and work of these early women in science. And two, as we add to the Funk List, we can share more about their work on digital platforms like Wikipedia to make sure the work of women in the sciences is discoverable online and well-known. Women, especially women of color, are underrepresented in the sciences, and that's according to the National Science Foundation's National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics report. And we'll pop a link to that in the chat in case you're curious to see that data. So this is, very important work as we think about inspiring future generations of scientists. It's also critical as we strive to know more about the history of women in science. All right, so moving on to kind of more about the history of women in science at the Smithsonian. So, we have a foundational understanding of the history of women in science in the United States, thanks to the work of some amazing historians of science. Margaret Rossiter and Sally Gregory Kolstad in particular are two of those amazing historians. They've been publishing on this topic since the 1970s, really creating the reference works and articles that historians still use today. And they did some of their research at the Smithsonian, which is really exciting. The Smithsonian is a very special place to tell the history of women in science because the Smithsonian, as a lot of you probably already know, is one of the United States' first national museums, but it's also one of the nation's first science institutions. So incredibly, women have been working in the sciences at the Smithsonian since the 19th century. So we know about them because data about women in science at the Smithsonian exists in our archival records, so in our annual reports, in our salary rolls, in phone books, in newsletters, in publications, and curators' records. And some of these records are digitized and some are not. Some women are hard to find. They are referenced, say, by their husband's name or by Miss or Mrs. Sometimes their names change with marriage too, so you have to kind of figure out if you're looking at the same person when you're looking at records. But records about women in science are there, even if they're hard to find. They're there in our records. So today, we're still recovering the history of women in science, and we're also reevaluating larger concepts and ideas like men were scientists in early American history and women were not. Men shaped the formation of scientific institutions and disciplines, whereas women really weren't involved at all. When you look at the historical record, that simply isn't true. And we'll put some really great links to blogs into the chat too that kind of unpack this problem of searching for women who maybe went by their husband's name, say, in records, and how it can lead to some problems around attribution. Women might not get credit for the work that they did if you can't kind of locate the work under their name. So check that out if you're interested. So to conclude, I think it's important to note that these early women in science did not lack notability in their day. And this might be surprising, but in fact, the second edition of the major biographical dictionary of scientists, American Men of Science, published in 1910, and despite its title, it did reference women in science, some women in science, not many, but some. And so this next slide, I want to show you two of those women, Mary Jane Rathbun and Harriet Richardson Searle. They were two carcinologists in invertebrate zoology at the United States National Museum, doing original research and publishing their findings. And again, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to say too much more, but we'll put some links in the chat where you can find out more information and see some resources about these women. So next I want to share Matilda Cox Stevenson and Alice Cunningham Fletcher were two more women mentioned in this second edition of American Men of Science. They were two of the first women in anthropology to do their own field research in the United States. And then finally, Evelyn G. Mitchell was also mentioned in American Men of Science. And she is an amazing entomologist and later an MD who worked as at the Smithsonian as a contract illustrator for a while in the sciences. And she has an incredible story, which is in a blog too. So I hope you check that link out if you're interested. What I want to bring home here is that these women were not outliers. They were notable people in the sciences in their lifetimes in the late 19th century and the early 20th centuries. I just want to make sure we transition for a moment here today. We're also excited to share information about more contemporary scientists at the Smithsonian too. And in celebration of Women's History Month, I recently wrote a blog post about Dr. Margaret Collins. And I want to highlight Dr. Collins' work. She was one of the first African-American female zoologists in 1950. In 1970, she became a research associate at the National Museum of Natural History's Department of Entomology and held that role until her death in 1996. And before she came to the Smithsonian as a research associate in her retirement, Collins, she was a professor of zoology at Howard University, at Florida A&M, and Federal City College in Washington. And her kind of specialty was studying termites, especially in the Caribbean. Now, I want to turn things over to my colleague, Grace Constantino, who can tell you even more about various records we have available online, including field books, including Margaret Collins' field books. Grace is the Outreach and Communications Manager for the Biodiversity Heritage Library. In this role, she manages public affairs, marketing and branding, and the library's email, blog, and social media program. She has worked with BHL in various roles since 2008. Welcome, Grace.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share my slides really quickly. All right. So today, I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce you to what the Biodiversity Heritage Library, or BHL, is, followed by a very quick demo showing you how to use the library. And as you'll see, BHL is a great place to find primary source materials that you can use for your Wikipedia editing activities. So first, what is BHL? BHL is a completely free and open access online library for biodiversity literature and archives. All material can be freely accessed and downloaded through our digital library portal at biodiversitylibrary.org. We operate as a global consortium of institutions around the world. So through our digital library portal, you can freely access materials from libraries across the globe, as you can see from the map on this slide, including the Smithsonian and the Smithsonian Libraries and Institution Archives. We have over 265,000 volumes in the collection to date. They span the 15th through the 21st century. The majority of our collection is in the public domain, about 75% of it, and the rest of it is available under Creative Commons licenses. So BHL materials are all great candidates for use in your Wikipedia editing activities. We also make images from our collection available in Flickr, and all of those images are also available under either public domain or CC BY licenses. So our Flickr is also a great place to find nature images for use in Wiki Commons. And I also wanted to highlight in natural history resources. In 2019, we produced the Her Natural History campaign celebrating women in natural history. This included blog and social media posts, as well as online events. And all of that content can be found at the first link that you see on that slide there, s.si.edu/Her Natural History. The campaign also featured our Women in Natural History book collection, which includes over 1,200 volumes authored or illustrated by women. In a moment, I'll show you how to navigate that collection through the BHL Digital Library, but you can also access it directly through that second link you see on the slide. And I believe Emily is also popping these links into the chat so you can easily access them that way. And then we also have a Women in Natural History illustrators collection in Flickr that features over 11,000 images illustrated by women. I'll again show you how to navigate to that through the BHL portal, but you can go directly to that Flickr collection on the third link there. So these are some resources that might be really useful for you as you're doing these Wikipedia editing activities. So with that introduction to BHL, what I wanted to do is briefly demo how to, in basic ways, use the library so that you can use it to do research activities for Wikipedia editing today. So I am at our digital library portal at biodiversitylibrary.org. And I want to start by just briefly showing you how to do basic search. As you can see, search is front and center on our homepage. The first thing you're going to want to do is decide the scope of your search. You can search either the catalog or the full text. If you search the catalog, that will search the bibliographic information in BHL, so things like title and author. If you search full text, that will search both that bibliographic catalog information as well as the full text of items in BHL. So you're just going to want to decide which of those two you want to do for the scope of your search. And then the other thing I'll mention is that just like with, for example, Google search, if you want to search for an exact phrase, put quotation marks around your phrase. And we also support Boolean operators like and or. So to demo search for you, I'm actually going to search for Dr. Collins, who Dr. Harmon mentioned earlier, and I'm going to search for her and materials related to Peru. So I chose to do full text. I put those quotation marks around Dr. Collins's name, and I used the Boolean operator of Peru. And as you can see with this search, I get 33 different results from the library. And for any results that you get, you can expand the details section to see where in either the bibliographic information or the full text of that item your search terms were found. So that can help you sort of decide which of these results you're actually interested in. You can also further narrow your results down using the facets here on the left. So let's say that I decide I'm actually only interested in things that Dr. Collins actually authored. I can click her name in the author field here, and that will update my search to only show me things that she authored. So as you can see, we have 2 of Dr. Collins's field books from the Smithsonian Institution archives available in BHL's collection that relate to Peru. So that's basic search. If you want to actually view any of the things that you get back in your search, you can just click on the title of the item, and that will take you to the BHL book viewer, where you can scroll through the item using the up and down arrows. You can zoom in or zoom out using the functionality that you see with the plus and minus arrow. And you can also use the pages module over here on the left if you want to scroll to a particular page really quickly. The other thing that I wanted to point out within the book viewer is this search inside feature. So this will allow you to search the text within the book that you're actually viewing. So let's say I want to see where within this item Peru is actually mentioned. So I search Peru, and then I'll get a list of the pages in this item that mention that term. And I can just click on any one of those pages to go and view it directly. One thing I do want to mention is that this full text search is based on the optical character recognition, or OCR, for the item that you're viewing. In most cases, that is automatically generated uncorrected OCR, so there may be errors with it, so that may impact your search a little bit. This is particularly true for handwritten materials like that you find in field notes that have notoriously poor automatic OCR. We are working to upload crowdsourced transcriptions like those generated on the Smithsonian Transcription Center to things like handwritten field books to enable better full text searching, but that is still a work in progress. So I did want to mention that that's a limitation of some of this full text searching, but this can still be a very useful way to find specific information with items you're viewing. And then the last thing in the book viewer I wanted to show you is this Show Info tab. That is where you can find the bibliographic information of the item you're viewing. This is also where you can find the copyright status of the item that you're viewing. So every item in BHL will have this copyright and usage statement on it. This again might be very useful information for different Wikipedia activities that you might be doing. And then the last thing that I wanted to demo right now was I just wanted to quickly show you how to navigate to those women in natural history resources I mentioned that might be very useful for you today. So I've gone back to the BHL homepage, and you'll see that our Women in Natural History content is actually featured on the homepage. So you can just click on that featured content box, and that will take you to a landing page listing all of those resources that I mentioned, including, for example, that book collection that I mentioned that features over 1,200 volumes authored or illustrated by women. It's also got all of that different Her Natural History content that I mentioned that you can check out. And then finally, it's also got the link to that Flickr collection that includes over 11,000 images illustrated by women. Another great thing about all of these images in Flickr is that each one is tagged with the name of the artist who illustrated it. So if you click on any one of those images and scroll down to the tag section, you'll actually find an artist name tag on it that will tell you exactly who illustrated that image. So that might be very useful attribution information if you want to use these images in Wiki Commons. The copyright information is also very clearly visible on each of these Flickr images. And if you want to view any of these images directly within BHL as well, you can just click on the direct page link in Flickr, and that will take you directly to that image in the BHL book viewer. So that was all that I wanted to demo today. I will be available throughout the workshop if there's other demos that people would like to see or other questions that I can answer. But at this point, I'm going to hand things over to Kelly Doyle. And Kelly is the Open Knowledge Coordinator for the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative. She works to raise awareness about the gender gaps on Wikipedia and to implement strategies to increase the representation of women from the Smithsonian online. She collaborates with Smithsonian museums and units on Wikipedia and Wikimedia programming and adding women from Smithsonian collections to Wikimedia. So Kelly, over to you.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, let me share my screen really quickly here. All right, I hope everyone can see that. Perfect. Okay, well, welcome to our Smithsonian Groundbreakers Editathon. I have put the link to our Wikipedia meetup page in the chat, but you can also access it from the shortcut here on the bottom of this slide. And I just wanted to shout out this amazing image of Jo Gale Howard. You will recognize this from the Eventbrite when you signed up or on social media where we shared out this graphic. But I think hands down, Jo Gale has one of the best images on Wikipedia that I have ever seen. And I just really, really loved it. So I just wanted to call extra attention to what has become my favorite image on a Wikipedia biography. Okay, so let's get into some Wikipedia rules and basics. It is freely accessible, the 5th most visited website globally with almost 300 different language Wikipedias, 15 million views, over 32 million images on Wikimedia Commons, and 75,000 active users a month. And we are governed by the 5 pillars that we are an encyclopedia that is written from a neutral point of view, that is free, that anyone can contribute to, and we're treating each other with respect when we edit and collaborate and talk to each other on talk pages, and also that we have no firm rules, but we do have policies like the neutral point of view I mentioned, so that all sides can agree when we are writing articles, reading articles, that what is included in Wikipedia is notable. A little bit later, we will do a demonstration, a live demonstration about a woman who has a tag on her article that claims that she's not notable. So we will talk a little bit more about those notability standards, especially for women on Wikipedia. But we want the women who are anyone on Wikipedia to be verifiable with reliable sources. So we want to be using journal articles, books, reliable news sources, and we can talk more about that too if you have questions about what constitutes a reliable source. But no original research. We want to point to that existing scholarship and things that are already published out there. We're assuming good faith as we edit along with our wiki colleagues. And then I did want to touch on conflict of interest. So on my user page, I have a conflict of interest statement that just says I'm an employee of the Smithsonian and this is the type of work I'm doing. I'm going to be really careful about what I edit. And if you want to talk to me about it, please do. If you think that you might have a conflict of interest, let me know and I can share that user statement with you. But generally, it's a good idea not to edit about anyone you know, anyone you know personally, or your boss, or anyone in your family, things like that. So again, I can share that conflict of interest statement with you, or if you go into the history of the meetup page that I shared, you can get to my user page that way. Okay, and I did want to call out the article ratings that all Wikipedia articles fall into. For new users, we typically want to start at the bottom with these stub and start articles. They are smaller articles that meet Wikipedia's notability threshold, but they just might not have had enough editing done to them yet to be all the way up this ladder of a good article or a featured article. And so our work list today has a wide variety of articles with different ratings. Most of them are in the start stub C class range because they will have the most work needed and references that need to be added to them. Okay, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the gender gap. The gender gap on Wikipedia is what is governing the work that we're doing at the Smithsonian, not only around the Funk List, but with the American Women's History Initiative. And on Wikipedia, only 1 out of 10 Wikipedia editors identify as female. And so this colors the type of content that exists on Wikipedia and how complete it is. So there is an editor gap and then also a content-based gap. Right now, 18.77% of Wikipedia biographies are about women. This statistic is coming from Wikipedia, Wiki Project Women in Red. And if we dial this down and make a little bit more sense of this, percentages sometimes don't make sense in my head. This is a little bit more clear. 336,610 of the almost 1.8 million biographies on Wikipedia are about women. So we have a lot of work to do. And you can see from 2014 to 2021, we have done a lot of work on Wikipedia. We've moved the needle. But we still have a lot of work to do to add notable women to Wikipedia and to make the articles that already exist on Wikipedia more complete. So Wikipedia is not complete, as I just said, and that work is something that we are doing together today by editing about these women in science who are notable, whose articles aren't long enough, or who don't exist on Wikipedia yet. Okay, so I did want to dial down a little bit of article anatomy. When I was first starting on Wikipedia, I was really only focused on the text of Wikipedia and not what was happening around it. And I found these slides to be really helpful to pointing out, what do all of these buttons mean and how do I get involved? Okay, so if we start at the top right-hand side, we can see there's a view history button. That is where we can see everything that has been edited on the page since the page started. And I'll show you a more focused view of that in just a second. Right next to it is the edit button, which is what you press when you want to edit. You can toggle between a source editor or a visual editor, and I'll show you both in our demo after my slides. I much prefer the visual editor, but it is personal preference. The visual editor basically just makes this page editable, and it looks pretty much the same as this. It's a very easy editable interface, and that's why I prefer it, but everyone learns differently. So I'll also show you the source editing. If we go all the way to the left-hand side to the talk button, that is where discussion is happening behind the scenes between Wikipedia editors, and every article has a talk page. And talk pages are a nice place to go and to just see, well, I saw something in this article that didn't make sense. Let me go to the talk page and see if other editors saw that too, or if there's something I'm missing, or if this has been discussed before and it's been decided to present it in X way versus Y way. Okay, if we look down at the lead paragraph, I love editing lead paragraphs. I constantly see things that make a woman or whoever notable in their article that's not in the lead paragraph. So for an example of one that I did edit in the past was a woman who had won an Academy Award, and that was not in her lead graph. So all I had to do was say blah, blah, blah is an American Academy Award winning actress. And I didn't need to cite that again because it was already cited in the body of the article. And so lead paragraphs are a good place for new editors to kind of get the ropes, learn how to edit, because you don't have to recite something if it's already cited in the paragraph. This is a summary of what is already in the article. So this can be a good place to make sure that everything that is in the article is represented in the lead paragraph, and it is very upfront and center what makes this person or this woman in science notable. If we look all the way to the right, we have the info box. Something that I love doing is adding info boxes. I will show you how to do that if you're interested, but this just shows basic information about the person as well as an image if a free use image exists. And then if we look all the way to the left, we can reference Wikidata and the Wikidata item about the person or the topic. And all of these buttons on the side are really interesting to explore, and I'll show you more of what's on over here. So we have external links, we have nav boxes at the very bottom of the page, we have all of this great authority control information, and we have categories. I love adding categories too. I'll show you how to do that if you're interested. But this is how people and topics are connected on Wikipedia through the category system. So if you wanted to learn more about American women activists, you could click this and see all of Gloria Steinem's peers. It's important to keep in mind that these are hand edited, so not everyone necessarily is included in these categories, which makes it really important for us to add women or whoever the topic is, making sure that these categories are complete so that it's easy to do interdisciplinary research or to find Gloria Steinem's or whoever's peers by having these categories complete. And there are people on Wikipedia who only add categories. And what I was going to say before is that if you were to scroll down here on this left-hand sidebar, you would also see all of the other language versions that Gloria Steinem's article appears in. Sorry, I thought that was on the next slide. But if you are interested in translating articles, that can be a good thing to look out for. Okay. So this is what the history of every page looks like when you toggle over. It shows you when the edit was made, the editor that made it, if they added or took away text from the article, and a summary of what they did. So this is really helpful, especially if an article has a flag that something might be wrong with it, like this needs additional references, for example. You can come here and see when it was put on the page and what the page looked like on the day it was added. So that can be really helpful to be able to go back and see exactly what was changed and when it was changed. And this is just a bird's eye view of what the top page looks like. If someone sees an issue within a page, 9 times out of 10, they're going to add it to the talk page. And this is a great place, even if you're not ready to edit Wikipedia, to kind of snoop around and see how Wikipedia editors talk to each other, what kind of things we point out, and how we collaborate together. Okay, so let's see about actually editing Wikipedia. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to create an account. There is a link on our meetup page, which is linked in the chat, to create your account on Wikipedia. Some things to keep in mind is that it's individuals only. You cannot create an organizational account. The advantage of having an account is that you can log all of your edits over time. You can go and look at all of your contributions. You become a member of our community by creating an account. You can personalize your user page and let people know who you are. And you can set certain preferences to make Wikipedia editing more easy and more personalized to your own style. I do get a lot of questions about if your username should be personalized, if it should be something random, and that is totally up to you. I am very transparent in who I am in my username. My username is Kelly Doyle. But there are folks on Wikipedia who are totally transparent, and that is a personal choice. I would urge you to add your email address, though. It's listed as optional here. You don't get spam emails, but you will get an email if someone sends you a message through your account. Okay, so as new editors to Wikipedia, some of the things that I think are good to keep in mind is the visual editor, which I will show you. Looking for articles that need a lot of work, like stub or start articles that maybe have 2 sentences or a paragraph and a handful of references. These articles, because they need so much work, there's a lot that can be added and a lot of work that you can do versus a much longer article where it might be harder to figure out where your contribution makes the most sense. We already talked about these lead graphs, but I think this is a great place to start, especially for these smaller articles where the lead paragraph might only have 1 sentence. Again, adding categories and then also adding new references and maybe a new sentence. Adding references through the visual editor is really easy, and I will walk through this in a demonstration after my slides end. But the best way to do it is in visual editor to do this the drop down comes down and you just hit cite and you copy and paste it in, and everything is formatted automatically for you. So it makes it really easy to go ahead and just add 1 sentence and add a reference to Wikipedia. And again, I'll demo this for you in just a second. So our tasks today, the big one, if you don't have one, is to create a Wikipedia username and sign in on the meetup page, which is linked in the chat, and I'll link it again. Alternatively, you can type in WP:/AWHI-FL2 into the Wikipedia search bar as a shortcut, and you'll be able to navigate there. Our meetup page has a list of work lists and a work list, which is a list of women from the Funk list that we would like to see have better pages. There's also a few red links. Red links on Wikipedia are articles that don't exist that should. You'll also notice on the work list that every woman has multiple references next to it that you can use to populate the article. So we've done some of that work for you. And definitely urging new editors to start with those stub or start class articles. And if you have questions, please ask them in the chat. Wikipedians on the call will be able to chat back with you, and I can answer them live as well. So I am going to toggle over now to our meetup page, where you can see the link here that I told you about to create a Wikipedia account. and it looks exactly the same. And then once you have your username, please sign in so we know that you were here and what your username is. And I'm just going to demo that now to show you how you would do it. So you would hit edit source, and this is the source editor, not the visual editor. And you would want to create a new line with a new asterisk. And a little wiki secret is that 4 tildes is your signature shortcut. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the edit summary where you just put a short snippet of what you change. So for this, I would just say adding me. Or something like that. And then I would hit publish changes, and I'm double checking that I'm signed in, and I'm signed in. So I'm hitting publish changes. Oh no. Okay. I did something wrong. It must have deleted. So I'm just going to go back and do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. There I am. My internet's a little bit slow. Okay, so if anyone has any questions about any of that, please ask them in the chat. I can't see them right now because I'm screen sharing, but our Wikipedians and other hosts can. Again, you'll want to navigate to our Wikipedia meetup page. You can type WP:/AWHI-FL2 into the wiki search bar to navigate here if you don't have the link. And then your first tasks are to create an account and to sign up here. These are the articles to edit that I was mentioning just a minute ago. All of these are references that you can use to populate the article. And at the very bottom are 2 articles that we're looking to get created. These are the red links that I mentioned. Both of them have Wikidata properties, which makes it a little easier to make a Wikipedia stub about them. And then also some notable references or some verifiable references that help establish notability for both of these women. And then also the BHL resources that Grace talked about are at the very bottom of the page. So again, if you have questions, please ask them in the chat. And now Andrew Lee, if he's still on the call, is going to help me do some demoing, going through some Wikipedia pages from the work list that we've identified that just need some work, especially establishing notability and looking at some of those lead paragraphs. Andrew, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to keep sharing mine?
I can share it. Yeah,
Okay,
let me do that.
Sharing.
It says it's disabled. You may have to re-enable it or enable it for me.
Oh no, okay, let me see.
Or co-host me.
You are a co-host now.
Okay, there we go. I can do it now. Thank you. Let's see where we are here. All right, let's get this up here. Sorry, I'm going to define the window to share correctly here, which I'm somehow not getting. Let me see. Interesting. I'm wondering why I'm not getting the right window to share. Let me try it again. Oh, here we go. All right. Are you seeing the spreadsheet on the screen there?
We are.
Kelly? Great. All right. Thanks, Kelly. My name is Andrew Lee. I've been very active with Wikimedia DC. I am now serving as the Wikimedian at large with the Smithsonian. And so I work with Kelly and other Wikimedians in the community to help improve content on Wikipedia and Wikidata and other places. So what I thought I'd show you is just kind of a little bit behind the scenes. Don't worry if this is a little bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to show you some of the things that we use on the back end to evaluate large swaths of articles. So what you see in this Google spreadsheet is basically the whole list of articles that we have focused on for this edit-a-thon. And the only reason why I'm showing you this is to show you that we have some ways of trying to evaluate a whole set of articles. Although we're going to be working on individual articles, sometimes it's nice to look at 20 or 30 or 40 as a set to see what the overall quality looks like. So one of the neat things about doing this in a tool like this is that we can actually very quickly find out the different quality levels of the articles. So you see here, we have different ratings for the articles, and this is actually done with a computer algorithm that looks at certain features in the article to tell us whether it's kind of a basic level or a more advanced level. And then here, we're also retrieving information that we have in our Wikidata database about what we know about that person. And hopefully, and looks pretty good that we have good information for each of these folks, but we might have to fill in some missing information, like for Marion or some other folks here. But the nice thing about being able to look at a whole set of articles is that you can actually look at stats like this, which is pretty cool. You can actually see that the majority of the articles we've chosen today need some help, that they're in the start or C class, and then we'd like to get them up to scale. So Kelly showed you before the ratings that we use in Wikipedia, a very, at the beginning of their life as an article, they're stub articles, and then they move up to start class, then good articles, and then featured articles are the best ones that we have in Wikipedia. In additionally, we can actually look at the most popular articles. So we can actually ask Wikipedia, how many visits are there to the different articles? This helps us evaluate which articles are gaining the highest traffic, which is kind of a neat stat to look at as well. So this is just a basic dashboard that we can use to just evaluate a whole set of articles in one shot. But as we're looking at this, we said, well, why don't we hone in on a few that need some loving care here? So let me just show you some of the things that we talked about before, or Kelly introduced, with just looking at a few articles to edit. So if anyone here is experienced in Wikipedia editing, you're free to go ahead and start editing based on the work list that we have. You can go down here and start looking for work here. We've actually got some sources and information already linked to those. So we encourage you to do that. But anyone else who wants to learn how to edit for the first time, or to learn about some of the tricks of editing, feel free to listen in and see what we're doing here. So we're going to start with this one. And this is a good example of how Wikipedia tries to be transparent about where it's good and where it's bad. So this is what we typically call a hat note in Wikipedia. And some people find this to be disturbing, but some people might see it as, this is great. At least Wikipedia is telling us where it knows there are some issues. And this is a great starting point for new editors to try to improve Wikipedia. So you can see that the issue here is someone has tagged this article with a note that says, this article's lead section may be too short to adequately summarize its key points. And then it's important to note the date this was tagged. So this is almost, it's 4 years ago, right? So one thing that you notice is when you read this lead paragraph here, you're probably wondering, well, it doesn't seem that short. Maybe this note is referring to a version of this article from the past, and maybe this is a stale message. So as Kelly showed before, we can actually inspect this and see if this is true. So we can go to the View History button right here, and this will show you a reverse chronological log of every single edit that's been made to this page. So don't be too intimidated by it, but it's basically the date it was changed, the person who changed it, and then a summary, hopefully, that they left saying what they changed. And you can see at Rosie Stepp, who's actually in our call today, who's the pioneer of improving the articles about women in Wikipedia, has left a note saying that's what she did, which is great. Now, if we scroll back here, we can actually see that March 2017 is when that message was added. And in fact, you can see the exact edit that was made. You can see that someone named Top Cipher added lead too short, that it was an orphan article and it was uncategorized, right? It's basically saying this article needs some loving care. So what we can do is we can actually click on the date here, March 10th, 2017, and see what that person saw to tag this article like that. And you can see that the person had a pretty valid issue here, saying that all it was this very basic sentence. And it may even be the act of tagging this with this got people's attention, and it actually improved because people tagged it like this. So this is a very useful thing to do. Now, the thing is, now we know that the graph at the front of this article is much longer and doesn't really have this issue anymore. So what we can do is go back to the original article. I click here on article, and we can actually delete that warning because it's no longer valid, right? So you can either hit the edit or edit source button, depending on which mode you like. For a lot of you, I think it'll be the visual defaults. Click on the edit button right here. It's simply clicking on this template, as we call it, and just hitting delete. All right. And that's a very simple thing, very simple act, but it actually does add value to Wikipedia. So if I click here and publish changes, we want people to add an edit summary, as Kelly said, and this just helps people understand what you changed without them having to look at every single click that you did, right? So you can go in here and say, removed short lead warning because it was stale, going back to 2017. All right, so that's my edit summary that other people will see. I can go ahead and hit publish changes. And now you'll see the article looks better. It doesn't have the warning at the top. And if I click on the view history button here, you'll see that my edit now is at the top because it's the last one that was made. And then this is my edit summary there that explains it. And again, this is useful because people can just scan this list and see the changes without having to inspect every single change. So that's a useful thing that you can do, is just to clean up these articles and to inspect the warnings and tags on these things. All right. Any questions from folks, or Kelly, any comments or additional elaboration on that?
I think that looks good.
Okay.
I was simultaneously in the chat too, so I missed little snippets, Andrew.
Were there any questions in the chat that we should be aware of? We're okay.
Can we demo again signing up on the meetup page? That was a question that's come up.
Oh yeah, sure. It's a little bit confusing because we have these special codes. So if you go to the meetup page, we have the sign up section. I'm going to reload this page. Okay, and there is the list of folks who've signed up. You hit the edit source button. Now, the thing is, when we are talking to each other, in fact, I'll show you this in a second, how we actually talk to each other on Wikipedia. If you click on the edit source button, we're no longer in the beautiful visual editor. We need to kind of look at this weird code here, but it's not too bad. If you go down here, you hit the star or asterisk button there, and then you put in 4 tildes, which are the squiggle button you've probably never used in the last few months of your life because very few people use the squiggle button. But if you go in here and put in 4 tildes like that, that will sign you up. Now, I already signed up already, so I'm just going to hit the show preview button, which I highly recommend you do if you're not sure the edit you made is correct or not. You hit show preview. It doesn't change anything yet, but you'll see that those 4 squiggles have been expanded to be your name and the date afterwards. Yeah. So another option is you put in 3 tildes. That will sign without. Is that right? Let me see. Yeah, that'll put your name in without the date afterwards. So that's another shortcut, is 3 tildes will be your name without the date afterwards. So that's the best way to sign up right there. Okay. All right. So you now know how to sign up. So let me show you another thing that you could do just to show you how we talk to each other. So we typically wouldn't do this because I explained in my view history, if you look here, I explained exactly what I did. But it never really hurts to over communicate to our community, right? So let me show you what happens if I go in here and I want to be a good citizen. I can also go to the talk page. So this is something you might not have ever clicked on. This is a discussion page related to every single article in Wikipedia, right? So every article has an associated talk page. So I go here to my talk page. Let's see if anyone's done any discussion. All right, so no one's really done much discussion here, but we do have some kind of metadata here that tells us some information about this, that it's a biography, that probably Rosie here added women scientists as a tag, or marine life as a tag of a project here. So what I could do here, if I want to be a good citizen, I highly recommend you do this if you want to try it out. You hit new. So this is basically adding a new kind of discussion thread here. And I can go to new section, and I can go in here and say removed warning. This is just to be a good citizen. I can go in here and say, I removed the warning at the top about a short lead because it was dating back to March 2017, and it has now been improved. If anyone has any issues, please let me know. And I can also, if I want to be fully transparent, I did this edit as part of a Smithsonian edit file. Right? And then I can do the same thing I did before, put 4 squiggles, and that basically signs my name. Again, I recommend you hit the show preview button, And you can see that this is what will show up on the talk page or the discussion page as my comment. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit publish changes. And you'll see now, if you go to the talk page or the discussion page, we use those synonymously, you'll see that there is in fact a new message at the bottom with my explanation, right? So this is nice. And sometimes, especially if you're like a Smithsonian employee or someone has possible COI, it's better just to be transparent about what you're doing. Because I can't imagine any Wikipedia editor debating my edit, because clearly that sentence has been improved since 2017. All right, any questions from folks? That's your very basic edit that you can do. And we encourage you to do that. You don't have to create new articles or write 10 pages of anything. This is actually very useful to remove these warnings, the signals to the community that you're improving the content. It makes for investigation of what needs work and what doesn't need work in Wikipedia. So if we have that kind of under our belt, we can kind of show you a different example here with another women scientist with another set of issues at the top here. So if there are no other questions, Kelly, we can go ahead and try this one. How's that sound?
Yeah, this looks good. And this is the article I mentioned during my slides, where we would talk a little bit about notability and Wikipedia's notability standards and standards for biographies of living persons.
Right, exactly. And we are working at a little bit of an advantage here because we have a predetermined list, right, that we've vetted pretty well, right? So we're pretty confident that the list of women that we're dealing with here pass a certain notability standard. But if you're editing, quote unquote, in the wild on Wikipedia, that might be a major consideration is, do you have enough sources and proof that this person deserves to be in Wikipedia? But we're in pretty good shape here. So what are some of the issues, Kelly, that we saw here that we want to address?
Well, one was that a lot of the references are coming, one is a dead link, but also coming from Green's own writings. So we do have some additional sources on the work list that we can use. And we did identify that there were a lot of information out there about Green that's not on her page, like all of her awards that she's won. I think most recently, Andrew, we saw that she won a Webby Award, and that's not in her article. And those things make her notable completely. So that takes away some of the notability guidelines that are being flagged here. And then also some of the biography of living person questions can also be fixed with the links back to the awards that she's won, which are external links that she hasn't written.
Yeah, that's a great point, which we didn't cover quite yet. But when we write about people in Wikipedia, there's actually an extra high bar about including information about them. And that's because you could be affecting the livelihood or safety of individuals in the world. And that's should be refreshing for most folks to know that Wikipedia tries to edit responsibly when it comes to individuals versus generic subjects out there, right? So as Kelly said, one of the things you'll notice right away is that we've got not only one warning, but two warnings at the top, which is great in some way because it gives you like a task list as a new editor as to what you can help do here. So let's take a look at the first one. And they're kind of related, right? That the one person said, well, is this person notable enough? Because if you look at this article, it could use some more information. And you could argue, as the second warning says, that look at those references. We only have the Smithsonian itself and her own publications. So do we have enough third-party verification for the notability of Candace Green? And also, where are we getting this information? Is it diverse enough, right? Those are good questions. So let's take a look real quick and see what we can find. The first thing you'll notice is that if we look at the first link here, Candace Green, Department of Anthropology, National Museum of Natural History, this is always a good thing, is just click on the link. Let's check out the first link. And what you'll notice is, oops, that's stale because now it actually doesn't go to her page at the Smithsonian. It could be that this is several years old or the museum has reorganized its pages. This is not unusual whatsoever. This happens quite a bit. So you could even argue like, oh my, we're in worse shape than we thought because this is not even a valid link. So job one, I think, would be to let's find her actual current page at the Smithsonian, at least, to do this, right? So the good news is that it's not hard to find, but if you do a quick Google, you'll find that, in fact, she has an even more extensive page than she had before. And this is her new page at the Smithsonian. So it actually has not only her education, research interests, and a very extensive list of publications, which if we had more time, we might want to actually enter more of these into her Wikipedia article. But at least we can replace the dead link with an active link here. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm here on the page. What we will wind up doing is going down here and says, here's the Candace Green reference. If you click on this up caret or arrow there, it'll kind of jump you to where that reference is. And you can see it's right here, University of Oklahoma, right there, right? So what we can do is you can either hit the edit source button and manually do it, or we much rather use the edit button here, which invokes the visual editor. And the reason why we like that is we click on that and we say, well, let's get rid of that. It's a stale link. But now we're going to go ahead and hit the cite button here. This is what Kelly showed you before, but we're going to show it to you live now. Click on cite and you can paste in the link. So there's the link to the website. And you can hopefully cross your fingers and hit the generate button. In a good day, you'll get a nicely formatted link. On a bad day, well, you got to fix it a little bit, but it's not bad. So we'll hit the generate button. Let's see what Smithsonian does for us. Wait. It's actually going on the site, scraping what it can. Okay, this is not bad.
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah. So we got a pretty nicely formatted. At the very least, we could just hit the insert button and we're good. If you wanted to, you could go in and kind of clean it up and make more specific things. But let's go ahead and hit the insert button. And if you have any problems with what it scraped, like it went out to the site and got what it could, you can always hit the edit button and manually tweak things. Now, for a site like this, it's not going to have an author and things like that. But if you know that the author and the date was not picked up, you can always manually enter it here, which is fine. All right, so we don't need to edit that, but we have it there. Let's just go ahead and make this one change. And this is more of a preference. Some people like to make one change, save, another change, save, or some people like to sit for 5-10 minutes and do a lot of changes. But for an edit-a-thon, I'll try to do small changes in case anyone else wants to make changes as well. So I hit the publish changes button. I can go ahead and say fixed dead link to National Museum of Natural History staff page. Like that,
oh, and
right?
Andrew, don't save yet. This, I just wanted to call out that it auto populates life right there because we were editing specifically in that heading versus hitting the top edit button and editing the whole page where that wouldn't populate in the
That's true.
In the edit summary.
That's a great point, right? If we hit the main edit button up there, it would just leave a blank box. But since we have what we call section editing, I have the edit button right next to the section. It will populate it with this section there, which might be useful to other folks knowing what section I changed. You can choose whether it's a minor or major edit. I tend to just make everything a major edit. Just depends on what you want to label it. I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. And now we've made that change. And again, this is very useful, productive work for any of you to do, is to save these dead links, right?
And I will say, in case we get that question about the minor edit, I usually hit that if I realize I've made a typo or I've left out a comma or something really small like that. Or if my hyperlink didn't work and I need to do it again, I usually click that as a minor edit, but generally not for anything else. And it will show up as a little M in the history of the page.
Right, exactly. So any other questions or any questions from folks that we might want to answer at this point?
I don't see any.
Okay, good. Well, feel free to put it into the chat if you have any questions. So that's a good, useful thing to do, is to just check the references, check the citations, and see if they're live or they support what is actually in the article. Now, another thing we can do here is we fix that reference. We now can do some additional searching, and then through another Google search, I found out that, hey, actually Candace Green has a very nice profile at the Smithsonian under this page, which is profiles.si.edu. And if the concern here is this person notable enough? And I would argue, yeah, that's a valid claim that, it says that she is, a museum anthropologist and she's written some papers, but what is she notable for? Well, the nice thing is if we go to her page here, you can go to the section on awards and honors. She actually has a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Council for Museum Anthropology. That seems pretty significant. Michael Ames Prize for Innovative Museum Anthropology World Summit. This is pretty impressive. So I would say her notability just went up several notches here. Not that we didn't know it before, but it's nice to have the proof, right? So we have a new source, which is profiles.si.edu, and we have something else. So let's just do one thing very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and let's just say we want to add that prose in here. So again, we don't want to just copy paste text from anywhere on the web. That's a copyright violation. But when it comes to something as formulaic as this, we can copy the exact name of the title, the exact name of the award, and the exact year, but we want to phrase it in our own words, right? So let's go back here and let's see. So we have one award here. Notice that the 2013 award is already mentioned. Oh, actually, it's 1 year off. We might have to fix that fact. So the Smithsonian site says 2012. This one says 2013. We might have to do some more research on there. But let me go ahead and put the Lifetime Achievement Award there first, because I think that's more significant. So I'm going to hit the edit button right there. And it might be just because it's a relatively recent award. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it. She won, she was recognized. And go to that. I'm going to paste that in there with the Distinguished Service Lifetime Achievement Award by counts up in 2018, right? Good. So there is, and then we probably want to fix this so it's not just repeating the same thing. I could just link it with and. All right, so that's pretty good. So let me go ahead and put my pointer in there to 2018. I'm going to go ahead and hit the cite button, but let me go ahead and grab the link here. So this is my proof of that, which is this Smithsonian Profiles page. And I'm going to go back here and hit the cite button again and put in the link. We're going to cross our fingers. It's like rolling a set of dice. Let's see what happens. Not bad. It's a little bit bare bones, but at least it's recognizing it. So I'm going to hit the cite button, and there we are. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit publish changes. I'm going to say added her 2018 Lifetime Achievement Award and linked to profiles. And again, you don't have to be as detailed as I am, but it's nice to be more detailed than not.
Let's add her Webby Award, and we can also show how to wiki link Webby Award.
That's true. Yes, good point. All right, so there we are, and hopefully there you see it as reference number 5 is the new thing I added, and there we have it there. So, and a Webby Award. So let's look at the Webby Award. The Webby Award was in 2005. Okay, let's do that just very quickly. Hit the edit button. So if we have a list of things, I'm going to take out the and there. And a Webby Award in 2000. When was it again? 2005.
2005. Sorry, I was on mute.
No worries. 2005. So we select that right there, and we can actually hit the, this always confuses me. We hit the chain button right there, right? The chain button right there is a link. So the cool thing is we can either link to something inside Wikipedia or outside Wikipedia. Most of the time we want to link to something inside Wikipedia. And there we are. We have an Webby Awards article. And that now links to the Webby Awards page. And I can go in here and say added Webby as my edit summary. All right, and that's it. So we now have, I didn't even think about linking this. I wonder, probably, unlikely we have an article for that. Let's go ahead and take a look. Council for Museum Anthropology. Oh, look at that.
Perfect.
I am underestimating our power of Wikipedia. So we actually do have an article about the organization that confers that. So that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and link to that right there. And I should add more confidence in Wikipedia. So say added link to org giving out award. Like that. Publish changes.
Perfect.
And there we are. We've improved the article.
Hey, and we have a question
Sure.
about citing. So the reason that we didn't cite again, and so we wiki linked the Webby Award so that someone can click on Webby Award and read the Wikipedia article. But the reason we didn't cite again is because we already cited the link for the Council for Museum Anthropology Award. So we just didn't cite it a second time because the same source is showing both awards.
Right. You could, and that's a good practice. So one thing you could do, let me go back in here. And I love that people are asking about these particulars, which is great. One thing I could do is just take this citation and just put at the end, right? So I could put it all the way out here and just say, now that I've put the citation there, it encompasses all 3 awards, right? Of course, if I really want to be accurate, I would change that. But I need to double check. Here it says 2012. It says 2013 in our article. So I might want to change it to 2012 since I have a source for it now, but I really would want to do more research as to what is the actual date. But if I put this citation here, that means that this covers all 3 that are there. For some articles, if it's you really want to prove that each one is citable, you might want to repeat the citation, which you can do. Let me show you how that works. So what I could do is if I really want to be pedantic, I could go in here and say cite, but I can hit the reuse button there, which is kind of cool. So I can go in here and I can actually reuse the citation, and I can actually go in here and reuse that citation again. So it's a matter of style, but there's no shame in saying the same reference, same reference, same reference if you really want to, you know, make sure people know. So let me go ahead and just add that and say added citations for awards. So that's one possible way to do it as well, is to repeat the citation several times there. We have some other questions here. The second sentence in the paragraph needs to be edited to specific award you're referring to. That's true. What is the second sentence here?
I guess which Webby, like meaning what the Webby Award was for.
That's true. You could do that. You could go in through and try to click through to the Webby. But we were having some problems finding exactly what it was, because there's like 20 or 30 Webby categories. So we might have to do some additional searching for that.
He clarified and said that it was Drew clarified that it was the Ames Award.
Ames Award. Oh, okay. Here, the Ames Award for Innovative. Okay, let's see. So we come back here. You're saying that we need information about the Ames Award here. Let's go back. This one, is that what they're saying? Thank you, Deborah. Yes, so in fact, the Smithsonian site for 2012 was correct and Wikipedia had it wrong as 2013.
So
and so
that, yeah.
Yes, thank you. I love teamwork. So this is good. We've actually improved that. Now, the question is, are these improvements enough to remove this top note?
What do our Wikipedians in the chat think?
Yeah.
Let's see, we have
What do people in the
Rob,
chat think? So
Jen.
now it says, do we meet the notability guideline? I would argue that the lifetime achievement would say, yeah, she's lifetime achievement. And then we've added 2 more references now. Well, at least 1 more reference.
Dawn and Ariel have voted yes. That feels like consensus to me.
Yes to remove.
Our request for comment has been approved.
Great. Thank you for chiming in. I love this. So that means I will blame everyone in the chat if I get reprimanded for this. Oh, good.
4 yeses.
I like that. 4 out of
4 and 0 no's.
Right. So we're going to go in here and we can delete this. And we now have kind of a clean article without the tag at the top. So removed warning at the top. Having added more references and info ability, like that. And hit publish. There we are. Wow, look at that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect.
All right. So thanks everyone for that help. That's great. And this is exactly what we would love for people to try editing in those articles. And then some other things I thought I'd show you just in case we wanted to add some more information, but I want to make sure people have time to edit. So I don't want to take up too much time here. But this is a good example of how Googling, we found that someone wrote up this nice blog post that mentioned that she actually retired in 2017, which is a fact that we don't have in the article. So that's one possible thing that someone could add to the article. And I'll just paste that link into our chat in case anyone wants to try that one. So you could add a line that says retired from National Museum of Natural History in 2017. And then that does bring up the question of what sources do we want to use to edit Wikipedia? And you'll notice that this is called Material World Blog. So this is a really interesting case of like, well, it's not New York Times, it's not CNN, but it's a blog. But is it just a blog? It's actually an academic blog. So if you look, it's actually edited by some notable academics. So in general for Wikipedia, this is a pretty good quality. It looks like there's a good editorial standard put on top of it. It's at least useful for these kinds of things to add this information in. So I would say this is a pretty good source for that. So that's one possible edit you could make with what you find on Google. And then another thing you might want to look to is to go to some other sites like where she taught. So if you want to look for some examples of the fact that she was an instructor or a professor, then this is some information that we have about her teaching activities that you could also add to the article.
Right. We did have a question about her images or adding images to Green's page. We don't have a rights-free image, so we cannot pull the image from her Smithsonian employee page. And there are no free use images of her that I could find on Wikimedia Commons or on Flickr or elsewhere. So for right now, her page will just have to be imageless until we can get a free use photo, or maybe even talk to someone at the museum to get a rights-free photo for her Wikipedia page.
Right. Images start to get a little bit sticky because of the copyright issues, and it might surprise folks to hear that Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons, where we store our images, they're very particular about copyright. So unless you can prove positively it's free, it will not be used in Wikipedia. So that's something that is surprising to folks, because people think it's like, oh, anyone can do anything. Actually, not at all when it comes to images. They're very much a stickler for those things. So I see a question in here about visual editor. It might be useful to show people in case you are in the text editor, which can be kind of intimidating, right? If you're looking at this, you're like, whoa, what world did I bounce into where I'm looking at a database record with braces and things like that? You can always go to the pencil icon in the upper right-hand corner and choose visual editing. I won't say always, this is for article editing, but with your article editing, if you are in the source editor, you can always choose visual, and this will bounce you into a much nicer way to edit the article. Or if you want to just jump into the source editing, you can go and choose source editing right there. So you can toggle between the two modes as needed.
And then we also have a question in the Q&A if there's a minimum number of external sources that we need to address the primary source issue. What do you think, Andrew? I think it also depends how many references are already in the article.
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't have a hard and fast rule, but I think in general, you know, it's you're kind of like 3 points determine the plane. So usually it's like if you can find 3 sources that are independent and establish notability and reliable content, then that's generally what you'd like to see, is not just one source. I mean, that's something you want to try to go beyond, is just one source establishing notability. Yeah.
Perfect. And then we also have a question from Carrie about a complex conflict of interest question about not editing people we know, but adding STRI, which is our tropical research, Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. The acronym is escaping me right now. So we would love to see those increased as well, Carrie. So let's see, what are our thoughts about?
Oh, this is about finding, editing about people you know.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe the answer is just more editathons like this about STRI scientists and women who are notable enough to have articles. Generally, it is good practice not to edit about people you know or employees within the same organizations. Andrew and I are, you know, because we work at the Smithsonian, we're bumping up against that, but we are making extremely good faith edits. So I think we're in a safe zone, but if you're not an experienced Wikipedian, it's best not to bump up against that line. What do you think, Andrew?
Yes, the general advice, kind of the prime directive, I think, when it comes to COI is if you don't feel you can edit neutrally about a topic, you shouldn't. So that doesn't preclude someone employed by the Smithsonian editing something about the Smithsonian, but it pretty much does mean that it's very likely that you have a conflict of interest unless you can really prove that you can be separated from that topic, right? Or that you can edit neutrally in a kind of a clinical manner. So that's something that is a fine line to toe. But I think disclosure is the most important part, right? Is trying to edit without disclosing a kind of connection is something that the Wikipedia community really frowns upon in a major way, because they don't know whether you're trying to hide something or trying to do something under the radar. So I think the most important thing is disclosure. And then there still is good faith assumed of people who are editing, even from an institution, when it comes to museums and libraries and archives. It's quite different if you're coming from Exxon or BP. So it's a different set of expectations when it comes to, and especially when it comes to women scientists, and we have such a high profile project, we are pretty transparent when we do projects like this.
And we also have one more question from Dawn in the Q&A, that her sister is a leading American scientist, which is great. And is there a place that she can add her to a list? So maybe we can demo Wiki Women in Red and give Wiki Women in Red, where all red links about notable women on Wikipedia who don't have articles yet live.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And we can actually point to the Women in Red if it comes especially to women articles. And then there's also there is a edit request queue in Wikipedia. It sometimes does not get the attention it should, because it's kind of at the whim of whoever decides to pick up a project from that list. But I don't know if Rosie wants to speak to this at some point, or I can just show you on the screen. So this is Wiki Project Women in Red, very active program, very much responsible for bumping the percentage of women biographies from 15 to 18%, which if you look at it, it's like a net change of like hundreds of thousands of articles. So you may not think that 15 to 18 is a big bump, but we're talking about like a net swing of like 200 some thousand articles. And that's huge. That's really significant. So this is a great place to talk to other folks or to maybe highlight things to edit. And you can see that there's lots of different editathons around this topic here, and it's happening all the time here. So I'm trying to think what other places we could look at that we could point folks to, but there's a lot of activity on the Women in Red page. And I think the fastest way to get there is right here. There's a short URL right there, w.wiki/347. I guess we could paste that into the chat if people want to take a look at that. Oops, I'm going to the wrong side. Everyone here, there we go. There's the wiki link if you want to take a look at that. And then we do have an edit requests page. Again, doesn't always get tons of reaction, but you can actually make requests to edit content. Or another option is if you're not sure, you can, or you're afraid that editing directly might raise a flag, you can always start an article in what we call the draft space. So you can actually edit it, and it's not in the main space of Wikipedia, but it's in a draft format. So you can actually write it. It's not going to really raise any red flags in terms of COI because it's not live. But then you can always submit that to Women in Red or other folks to take a look at it and to get some third party or second set of eyes on that. So yeah. Some other nice comments in the chat. Yeah, it looks like there's interest in working on women at the Tropical Research Institute. That's great. Sounds like we need one just for the tropical research, Kelly.
Yeah, definitely. The Tropical Research Center is very cool. Carrie, please reach out. We would love to focus on STRI women scientists for a future event.
Right. So I think it's a good summary of how you can edit these articles, and you'll feel free to add brand new prose. You don't have to just copy edit. You can actually add new prose, but just make sure you take a look at the page on NPOV in Wikipedia. If you just go to your search bar and just type in WP, which stands for Wikipedia, NPOV, then you can kind of read our guidelines, a neutral point of view. But the nice thing is that most of you have used Wikipedia enough that you kind of appreciate why it's useful, right? That it can kind of write from this kind of distance clinical perspective that tries to give all sides or legitimate sides of an issue fair weight in an article. So I think that's something that for these types of articles about women scientists, you have a pretty good sense of what should go in there. And Kelly says it's definitely best not to edit the specific unit page that you work for. I think that's so you get more experience, better to not have those signals crossed there. So.
Yeah, definitely being very careful it's very specific, but if you're on the call and you are a Smithsonian employee, not to edit about the specific museum or unit that you work for, especially if you're not a super experienced Wikipedian yet.
Yeah, we do have a concept in Wikipedia of what they call an uncontroversial edit, which is kind of mythical. But I would say an uncontroversial edit, the closest we have is what we saw in terms of 2012 versus 2013, right?
Yeah.
If you can clearly see as an error in the date, and you can point to the award site that says 2012 and the Smithsonian site says 2012 and there's someone else says 2012 and there's no proof there's 2013, that's a pretty good edit that you can make even if it's about someone you know, as long as you reference it, right? You point to where that proof is. If it's about what we call framing or balance, like is something embarrassing about a person, if it's about whether someone was let's say prestigious or not prestigious, those are ones that you probably want to stay away from because they're more subjective in those areas.
And as our Wikipedian friend Jim pointed out in the chat, you can always leave a message on the talk page, even if you do have a conflict, say you work for a certain museum or organization, to just jump onto the talk page of that article and say, hey, this information is really outdated. I'm not going to touch it, but here's some links of reputable references to the changes that I'm proposing should be made if anyone is interested in making these, few updates.
Right. So any other questions? I feel folks would feel free to just go back to the work list and find a few folks you want to take a look at and see if you can make the same type of edits that we were just talking about. Just fixing links and inspecting links and citations, highly useful for us in the Wikipedia community, and definitely welcome work.
Before you have to jump off, Andrew, do you want to demonstrate how to make a simple edit like adding a category? Something that's really easy to do for new users. I know that we use the Hotcat, but if you don't have Hotcat enabled, which is a tool that helps make it faster, how you would do it by hand.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's useful to show you some things at the bottom of an article which you might not always see because we've been inspecting the hat note at the top. But what you might not know is that we actually have a lot of messages at the bottom of articles. So in fact, one of the things I just noticed is that this is really out of date. This is probably put in here the day it was created. And unfortunately, because it's at the bottom, we sometimes forget to look at it. So when we create brand new articles, which might just be 2 sentences or 3 sentences, we'll often say, this article is about a stub. And the nice thing about this is that by putting this message on there, it signals to other Wikipedia editors, some of whom are just dedicated to this task of helping to sort them, improve them, or just add more content. So you can see, look at this down here, we have categories for the article. And by putting that message there, it automatically puts it into American Anthropologist Stubs. Stub meaning a very short article, like the stub of a bread loaf. And what we want to do is get rid of this. Like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually pretty substantial now. It doesn't belong as a stub. So what you can do is go up here and hit edit source or edit, either one. But I can go ahead and hit edit right there and scroll down. And you can see that this, if you click on this article is about a stub, I click on it. This is actually what we call template, right? It's just a little chunk of code that expands in this box. We can actually get rid of it, right? And you can see if I hit the delete key, I get stub. I can actually delete some extra space there, and I can go ahead and hit publish changes. And I can say, get rid of stub template because it's stale. Like that. I hit publish changes. And you'll notice that it's no longer there. But the nice thing is it's also removed the category that it was a stub, right? So now it doesn't show up on people's lists of articles needing immediate help, right? It's no longer this hyper short article. So this does bring up the issue of like, how do we work with categories at the bottom? This does get into the longer discussion of how do we start customizing our user environment to have all these cool tools that Kelly was talking about. Like we have these tools that you can add categories faster. But let me just go ahead and just show you what this kind of looks like at the bottom. If I hit the edit source button, just to show what the text looks like, this is a little bit easier to show you what this looks like. You can see that this is basically what anyone can add at the bottom of a article, right? So you can see American anthropologists, living people, American women anthropologists, et cetera, right? So this is kind of neat. In fact, this is a very common thing is to add just category Brown University alumni or university alumni down here. So this is also a very useful thing you can do because this is how people discover content is through browsing categories. And I'm sure some of you have done this before. So the toughest thing is that what are the category names? Is it alumni of Brown University? Is it Brown University alumni? It's sometimes hard to figure out. And in general, what you want to do is pretty much just find someone else that's similar and then look at the categories they're in. And you can kind of sometimes figure out exactly what types of things you want to put in there, right? So let me see, make sure we have all the ones down here. I think this is pretty complete, right? One of the sad things we do all the time is if someone passes away, we will go in and remove a category like living people. Or if you discover new things, like they went to a certain school, you can do that. So one thing we could do, I don't know if we have a Webby Award winners category. Let me go ahead and take a look at that. See.
That would be
And
a
I'm
good
gonna
one. We should have that if we don't.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see. Webby Award. Webby Awards. List of Webby Award winners. We actually have a list of Webby Award winners, but oh, here we go. We do. We have a category called Webby Award winners, which is just what that is. Let me show you what that looks like. So I just did a quick Google search and we have Webby Award winners. All right. So this is a category we can add. So if I'm on the page here, I can just go ahead and copy that category. And we can go down to the bottom here and just type in the double bracket like that. And that's kind of how we link to content within Wikipedia is the double brackets, beginning and end like that. So category Webby Award winners. And then we go ahead and say added Webby Award winners cat like that. Hit publish changes. And then we now have Webby Award winners as a category there. So now when you click on this category and start browsing through all the Webby Award winners, she should show up on there.
And sometimes when I'm creating a new article, I'll go into another article that has categories I like and just copy and paste that source, how it is in the source editor and paste it into my article. So I don't have to add each one by one.
Right. That's right. That's one thing you can do is just kind of, if you're doing a lot of edits, you can go in and just copy paste that category across a bunch of different tabs that you have open, right? Okay, so a lot of interesting things you can do. And hopefully you have some time to try those out and we'll be available in the chat if you have any questions.
Yeah, I think for now we're going to let everyone edit for a little while and have, 10 or so minutes of quiet time, quiet editing time. If you have questions, ask them in the chat. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about BHL's resources. Okay, so we're in the chat if you need us. Thanks, Andrew.
Sure, no problem.
Hi, everyone. As Kelly said, I was going to jump back in and show you a couple more things related to BHL resources if you're interested. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so the two things that I wanted to point out that I thought might be useful, relevant to some of the editing discussions that have happened today, is showing you how you can link to BHL resources, for example, using that cite functionality that has been demoed a couple of times. So if you want to use any of the books that you're viewing in BHL for a citation in Wikipedia, for any of the items you're viewing in the book viewer, there's the URL at the top that will be biodiversitylibrary.org/item/ and then it will have the item ID following it. So you could just grab that URL and put that into that site URL box that Andrew and Kelly showed you a couple of times. So that's one way that you could quickly just add a citation for an item in BHL to your Wikipedia article. The other thing that I will mention is that many of the items, though not all of our collection, also have DOIs. So if you're in the book viewer and you click on the title in the book viewer, that will take you to what we call the bibliography page for the item you are viewing. It's all of that bibliographic information. And if you scroll down to it, if the item does have a DOI, there will be a DOI section, and you could just grab that DOI as well. So you could use this in the same way you would use the URL, using that cite functionality to quickly add a citation from a book you might be using in BHL to your Wikipedia article. So I did want to highlight how you can add those citations. The other thing that I will mention is if you want to link to, for example, a specific page as part of any of your editing activities, any page that you're viewing in BHL has a permanent direct link to that specific page visible under the URL for current page. So if I wanted to link to specifically page 6 in this field book from Dr. Collins, I would actually want to grab this URL for the current page rather than the overall item URL, because that will go to that specific page. Now, I think the cite functionality, if you grab the specific URL to the page, it will still give a citation for the overall item. But if you were editing the article itself or something and you wanted to link to a specific page, that's how you do that. So I wanted to show that. And then I also wanted to highlight, so the Flickr images that I mentioned, particularly that Women Illustrators and Flickr collection. Wikimedia actually makes it really easy for you to import images from Flickr if you want to use them in any of your activities using the upload wizard. So I've gone to the upload wizard here, and as you can see, if I decide to use this, it actually has an option to share images from Flickr. And so, for example, let's say I wanted to upload this specific image from the BHL Flickr collection to for use in different Wikimedia projects. I can just grab that Flickr URL there and say get from Flickr, and it will actually import the image. And it's taken a little bit of time to load here, but I can see that it's now been imported here, and then I can continue and add the additional information. It lets me add description. And then down in the rights section, it allows you to choose, what is the particular rights for this image. So this one, if we go back to Flickr, we can see that it's under the public domain. And if I view the image either in the description here, it says it was published 1831 to 1834. If I go back to BHL, where it has further bibliographic information, I can also see that the authors of this work died in the 1870s. So that gives me a lot of information that I can use when I say what the copyright of the item is. So, for example, definitely expired in the United States. First published before 1926, and authors deceased more than 70 years. So I can choose that to confirm that, yes, this image is okay for me to use in Wikipedia. And then you can add categories and other things like that. So that's a quick and easy way that if you wanted to import images from our Flickr for use in your editing activities, you could do that. So I'm happy to answer any other questions related to our BHL resources if there are any, or I can demo other things as well. Just let me know.
There was a question in the chat, Grace, about what DOI means.
Oh, that's a great question. So DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier. It is one of many different types of kind of permanent identifiers for an item. So that DOI link, Digital Object Identifier, is going to be a permanent link to that item. So it's a way that you can cite it, and it shouldn't ever be a dead link or something like that to link to the resource. And just feel free to chat me any other questions related to BHL resources, and I'm happy to answer those.
All right, well, while we are waiting for some questions about those resources, I'm going to screen share our work list and go through some of the things that have been created and how to edit what you've done on the work list. So let me share really quickly. All right, hopefully everyone can see this now. I'm going to reload this page really quickly. Thank you to everyone who signed in. If you still haven't, please do. If you need another demonstration about how to sign up, just let me know and I can go through that again. So far at our event, 2 articles have been created, which is really amazing. Thank you to the editors who've created these pages. As you are making changes to pages or creating new pages, you can always add them here on our work list, just at the very bottom. Again, these BHL resources are down here as well. And I did want to tell you where you can find out about more wiki events in the future. Let me just move my screen a little bit. So you can always find future events on our American Women's History page. It's just womenshistory.si.edu, and I can link this when I'm not sharing. All of our wiki events show up here. And any other AWHI, American Women's History Initiative events, but our wiki events are reliably here. I also wanted to shout out the Wikimedia District of Columbia. Ariel Citrone and other Wikimedia DC board members are on the call and in the chat helping with our wiki editing. Wikimedia DC is a great supporter of our wiki programming here at the Smithsonian, so I just wanted to let you know that they are a resource, and you can see their calendar. Our event right here is front and center, but you can always see other events that are coming up here. And then I did want to, and I'll link that in the chat as well. And I did want to also let everyone know about the Wikipedia Tea House. This is a great place for new editors to ask questions and learn more about just specific mechanics of how to edit Wikipedia, or where they can find certain rules about how to make certain edits on Wikipedia. When I was first learning to edit Wikipedia, this was amazingly helpful to me. And I don't even know if I ever asked a question because there's such a great archive of questions here. And you can search the archives for what you're looking for. So if you're trying to find out about images or how to add a message to a talk page, you can type that here into the archive and see what comes up. So this is hugely helpful. I'm gonna link this in the chat. And if there are any questions, let me see. I'm happy to answer those. Okay, perfect. I will add these now. If you have more questions in the next 10 minutes as you're going through and editing, please let me know. I'm going to be silent again to let you get that last 10 minutes of edits in, but if you have questions, I am here to answer them. And again, if you haven't done so yet, just sign in on the meetup page or add any articles you edited or created at the bottom of the page there. Okay, everyone, as we're winding down, I do want to share one other page, if my screen share will work. This is the landing page for all things American women's history at the Smithsonian. It has a running list of the events that we posted, as well as future events, and associated Wikipedians or employees of the Smithsonian down here that you can reach out to, or anyone who's editing in our space. So this is also a good place to keep an eye on, or to add to your watch list, which you can do by clicking the star up here. For future events, if you want to join in and edit more about women from our Smithsonian collections. So I will add that to the chat now. And again, if you haven't signed in, please sign in on our meetup page and put any articles that you edited or created down here at the bottom. Thank you to those who've already done that, much appreciated. All right, and here's that link in the chat. And I'm going to hand it over to Ariel, who is from Wikimedia DC and who's the partnerships manager there.
Hey, Kelly. Hey, everyone. It was so great to watch all the great work you've done today. And thanks so much for editing Wikipedia and overall improving the encyclopedia. I just have a quick plug for an event that we are doing with NewsQ and the World Health Organization. I'll go ahead and put the chat in the registration link in the chat. It is specifically an event that'll include more Wikipedia editing training, but the ultimate goal during the actual editathon portion of the day is to improve articles about vaccines and vaccine safety. So if anyone has a particular interest in that, or knows anyone who may be interested in that, please go ahead and share the following link with any of your contacts. Of course, Wikipedia being in the top 10 most visited websites in the world is a common source for people to find information about vaccines, and especially now about COVID-19 vaccines. So we are trying to get everyone who can to help us improve that content, since it is viewed millions of times every day. Thanks so much.
Awesome. That sounds like a great event. Thanks, Ariel. And as we wind down, if anyone has any questions after this event, please feel free to message me on Wikipedia. I'm just user Kelly Doyle, no space. And I'll also put my email in the chat in case anyone has any questions. But otherwise, we will just edit for a few more minutes. And if you have any questions in the next minute or so, just let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. Okay, everyone, so I've put my contact information in the chat. Please make sure if you've edited at our event today that you just sign up so that we have your username. And if you've edited any pages or created new ones, you can add them at the bottom of the page. Also, this tutorial will live on the Smithsonian Institution's Archives YouTube channel, which Emily has also linked in the chat. Thank you to everyone who attended today, and be on the lookout for future editathons from the Smithsonian and the American Women's History Initiative. All right, bye everyone. Thank you so much.